4 brands, one terrifying pattern. And a question the automotive industry has been desperately trying to avoid. What happens when the engine, the one thing every car absolutely cannot live without, becomes the thing you can trust the least? Let's start with General Motors. Because what is happening to their flagship 6.2-liter V8 engine is unlike almost anything this industry has seen. This engine powers the Chevrolet Silverado, the Tahoe, the Suburban, the GMC Sierra, the Yukon, and the Cadillac Escalade. These are not niche vehicles. These are the backbone of General Motors. Together, they represent some of the best-selling, most profitable vehicles in America. And they are failing without warning. In April of 2025, GM recalled nearly 600,000 trucks and SUVs in the United States after discovering that manufacturing defects in the connecting rods and crankshaft could cause sudden, catastrophic engine failure while driving. No warning lights. No unusual sounds in some cases. Just loss of power. On the highway, at speed. The recall covered model years 2021 through 2024, and the initial investigation traced the root cause to supplier manufacturing failures. Out-of-specification crankshaft dimensions, sediment on connecting rods, and contaminated oil passages. GM introduced a 2-part remedy. For vehicles that passed an engine inspection, dealers were to switch the oil from the original AO20 specification to a thicker AO40 formula. For those that failed, full engine replacement. But that's only part of the story. By January of 2026, federal regulators had reopened the formal investigation into whether GM's own recall fix had actually worked. The reason? Owners were filing complaints reporting that their engines had failed again, after the official recall remedy had already been performed. Both versions of the fix were implicated. Engines that received new oil were failing. And in some cases, engines that had been fully replaced were failing too. One owner described their engine seizing at 70 miles per hour on the highway with the new oil already installed. Another reported their second engine going out at 53,000 miles with 2 children in the vehicle. GM denied their buyback request. The owner went to arbitration. This is not a repair story. This is a trust story. The situation gets even worse. General Motors is now also facing class action lawsuits, with attorneys investigating whether the company knowingly sold vehicles with engines prone to catastrophic failure. And while GM battles that legal exposure, industry analysts are watching something else closely. The ripple effect on the Escalade. A vehicle that sells on the promise of premium quality and costs buyers upwards of $100,000. No one who spends that kind of money expects to be handed a rebuilt engine and a loaner car. Now shift your attention to Toyota because their crisis is running on a parallel track. And in some ways, it is even more damaging to the brand. Toyota's 3.4-liter twin-turbocharged V6, the V35 AFTS, powers the Tundra, the Lexus LX, and the Lexus GX. Since 2024, this engine has been recalled 3 separate times. The total number of vehicles caught up in this saga has now climbed to nearly 270,000. The cause in each case is the same: machining debris left inside the engine during production, contaminating the main bearings and triggering knocking, rough running, power loss, and in the worst cases, total engine failure. What makes Toyota's situation uniquely damaging is the timeline. Some engines were failing before 20,000 miles. Toyota's response to the first recall was to replace engines wholesale, a process that took dealerships between 13 and 21 hours per vehicle. Then a second recall came. Then a third, covering 2024 model trucks that Toyota had specifically said were built with improved manufacturing processes. The improved process was not enough. The real problem goes much deeper. Independent teardown experts have begun suggesting that the issue may not be purely about debris at all. That the V35A engine may have a fundamental oiling design flaw, one that no amount of factory cleaning will permanently resolve. Toyota has not publicly addressed that theory. Meanwhile, some 2026 Tundra owners are changing their oil at 500 miles into ownership, trying to flush any potential debris before it reaches critical components. That is not customer confidence. That is customer fear. Honda's situation plays out differently, but the underlying pattern is familiar. In early 2025, Honda recalled nearly 295,000 vehicles, including the Honda Pilot, the Acura MDX Type S, and the Acura TLX Type Cs. after discovering that faulty software programming in the fuel injection electronic control unit could cause engines to lose power or stall while in motion. The root cause traced back to a supplier who, in Honda's own words, did not fully understand the component specifications when developing the software. That software was installed in vehicles for years before the problem surfaced. Separately, federal regulators opened a safety probe into 1.4 million older Honda vehicles for connecting rod-bearing failures in their six-cylinder engines, the same fundamental failure mode appearing in the GM and Toyota crises. Honda had its own Accord hybrid recall not long after, adding another 256,000 vehicles to the list for a different software issue that could cut drive power without warning. However, none of these stories match the sheer scale of what Hyundai and Kia have endured with the Theta 2 engine. This crisis began in 2015 and never fully ended. Manufacturing debris in the crankshaft restricted oil flow to the connecting rod bearings. Bearings failed, engines seized, and in some cases, punctured engine blocks led to oil leaks and fires. The total legal and financial fallout from the Theta 2 saga surpassed $2 billion. Millions of vehicles were caught up in recalls and settlements spanning nearly a decade of production. A Hyundai safety engineer eventually went to federal regulators with internal information, alleging the company had known about the problem before it acted. The fines that followed broke federal civil penalty records. What we are witnessing across these four manufacturers is not a coincidence. It is a symptom. The pressure to reduce costs, accelerate development timelines, and outsource critical manufacturing processes to suppliers has created a fragile foundation beneath vehicles that consumers are paying premium prices to trust. When GM, Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai are all confronting versions of the same failure, machining debris, bearing damage, oil starvation, engines dying without warning, the question is no longer which brand is having a bad year. The question is what the industry is going to do about a problem that has clearly outgrown any single manufacturer's ability to quietly fix it. Because at some point the recall letters stop being reassuring, and they start being a pattern.